Are you a certified Scrum Master? Don't panic. If you don't have a certification and they ask you this question, be confident and answer if you have a Scrum Master certification or not. If you are a certified Scrum Master, just share the details of your certification like certification type and the year of passing. In case you are not certified, to highlight your experience in the particular field and let the interviewer know if you are planning to take one in the near future. If you were to introduce Scrum to senior executives, how would you do it? This is a deliberately an open question meant to encourage discussion. First of all, consider yourself a part of the organization. Explain Scrum in simple terms, and if needed, you can even talk about how to create learning organization that is ready to take risks and try experimentation in order to identify the best products for their customers. There is no specific answer to this question, but you could sell your experience really well here. How does Agile development model differ from the waterfall model? Well, in waterfall, work is done sequentially. That is, the previous phase must be over even before initiating the next phase. Whereas in Agile, all the phases that are done in every iteration. Feedback from end user is received at a later stage, whereas in Agile, feedback is received continuously throughout the development cycle. In the waterfall model, requirements should be finalized before initiating development activities. In Agile, changes are welcomed at all stages, so it is flexible, but always take care there is no requirement over creep. In waterfall, progress is measured as percentage completion, whereas in Agile, progress is measured by working software that is released or delivered. In waterfall, decision making or controlling authority is in the hand of project manager, whereas in Agile, self-motivated and self-organizing teams drive the projects. Those are the main differences. This is really an important question. What is the empirical process control? So empiricism means working in a fact-based, experience-based, evidence-based manner. Scrum implements an empirical process where progress is based on observation, not fictitious plans. Scrum also places great emphasis on mindset and cultural shift to achieve business and organizational agility. So if you see the three pillars of empiricism or Scrum, transparency. This means presenting the facts as it is. All people involved, the customer, the management, individual contributors, are all needs to be transparent in their day-to-day activities. They should also trust each other and they should have courage to keep each other about the good news as well as the bad news on their user stories. Everyone strives and collectively collaborates for the common organizational objective, and no one has any hidden agenda. Secondly, inspection is in this context is not an inspection by an inspector or an auditor, but an inspection by everyone on the Scrum team. The inspection can be done for the product, process, people aspects, practices, for the continuous improvements. For example, the team openly and transparently shows the product at the end of each sprint to their customer in order to gather valuable feedback. If the customer changes the requirements during inspection, the team does not complain but rather adapts by using this as an opportunity to collaborate with their customer so that they could clarify the requirements and test out the new requirements or the hypothesis. Thirdly, adaptation. Adaptation in Scrum context is about continuous improvement. The ability to adapt based on the results of the inspection. Everyone in the organization must ask this question regularly. Are we better off than yesterday? For profit-based organizations, the value is represented in terms of profit or cash. The adaptation should eventually relay back to one of the reasons for adopting Agile. For example, faster time to market, increased return on investment through value-based delivery, reduced total cost of ownership through enhanced software quality, or improved customer satisfaction, for example. So Scrum works not because it has 3 roles, 5 events and 3 artifacts, but because it adheres to the underlying Agile principles of iterative, value-based incremental delivery by frequently gathering customer feedback and embracing change. This results in faster time to market, better delivery predictability, increased customer responsiveness, ability to change direction, managing changing priorities, enhanced software quality, and improved risk management. What are the different roles involved in the Scrum framework? 3 roles defined in the Scrum Guide are the Scrum Master, who ensures that all the team members follow Scrum's theories, rules, and practices. They make sure the Scrum team has whatever it needs to complete its work, like removing roadblocks, impediments, they are holding the progress, organizing meetings, dealing with changes and bottlenecks. Secondly, the product owner is responsible for the work the team is supposed to complete. The main role of a product owner is to motivate the team to achieve the goal and the vision of the project. Thirdly, the development team, also called Scrum Team, is a self-organizing and a cross-functional team working together to deliver products. Scrum development teams are given the freedom to organize themselves and manage their work to maximize the team's effectiveness and efficiency. Explain Scrum shortly. Scrum is one of the most popular Agile methodologies. It is an adaptive, iterative, fast, flexible, and effective methodology designed to deliver significant value quickly and throughout a project. Scrum ensures transparency in communication and creates an environment of collaborative accountability and continuous progress. Scrum framework is structured in such a way that it supports product and service development in all types of industries and in any type of project, irrespective of its complexity. A key strength of Scrum lies in its use of cross-functional, self-organized, and empowered teams who divide their work into short, concentrated work cycles called sprints. The Scrum cycle begins with a stakeholder meeting during which the project vision is created. The product owner then develops a prioritized product backlog, which contains a prioritized list of business and project requirements written in the form of user stories. Each sprint begins with a sprint planning meeting during which high priority user stories are considered for inclusion in the sprint. A sprint generally lasts between 1 to 4 weeks and involves the Scrum team working to create potentially shippable deliverables, a product increment. During the sprint, shortly, highly focused daily stand-up meetings are conducted where team members discuss daily progress. Towards the end of the sprint, a sprint review meeting is held during which the product owner and relevant stakeholders are provided a demonstration of the deliverables. The product owner accepts the deliverables only if they meet the defined user acceptance criteria. The sprint cycle ends with a retrospective sprint meeting where the team discusses ways to improve processes and performance as they move forward into the subsequent sprint. What is Scrum? Scrum, in short, is a lightweight agile framework within which people can address complex adaptive problems while productively and creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. What are the 5 Scrum values? Courage. Scrum teams must have the guts to be genuine, upfront, and honest about the project's progress and any bottlenecks they encounter, both with themselves as well as with stakeholders. Members of the team must also have the bravery to seek assistance when needed, attempt new techniques or procedures that they are unfamiliar with, and respectfully disagree and engage in open debate. Scrum Masters, like respect, can first and foremost promote courage by displaying it. To avoid mid-sprint adjustments of our scope creep, the Scrum Master must have the confidence to stand up to stakeholders and product owners. Secondly, focus. Each member of the team must remain focused on the work at hand as well as how it affects the sprint goal in order to get the most out of each sprint. Scrum Masters might limit the number of tasks or priorities assigned to each team member throughout sprints to help them stay focused. Individuals can also stay focused on their assigned work by encouraging full team participation in daily Scrum meetings. Thirdly, commitment. Scrum teams must be able to function as a team to accomplish a common goal. This entails putting faith in one another to complete their jobs and deliver to the best of their abilities. It will only occur if each team member is completely dedicated to the project and the team. Scrum Masters and team leaders can aid commitment by facilitating good sprint preparation and shielding teams from mid-sprint scope changes and undue product owner pressure. Fourthly, respect. Respect in a Scrum team implies understanding that no single individual or their contribution is more valuable than other. Respect all entails putting your faith in your co-workers to complete their jobs, listening to and considering their suggestions, and praising their achievements. Scrum Master may assist their teams to develop regard for each other by exhibiting respect for the product owner, stakeholders, and the team members. Finally, openness. Each member of the team must be absolutely truthful about their personal progress in order for the Scrum team to accomplish the maximum progress in the quickest period possible. The daily Scrum meetings goal is to identify and solve problems that won't happen if team members are not honest about any problems they are facing. Team members must also be willing to collaborate with one another and see each other as vital contributors to the project's success. Being upfront with their teams is one of the finest methods for Scrum Master to force openness. Giving honest feedback at daily Scrum meetings is not only crucial for making required adjustments, but it will also inspire team members to be honest and open in return. These are the 5 Scrum values. What is sprint in Scrum? Sprint is a regular repeated work cycle in Scrum methodology during which work is completed and made ready for review. A sprint is at the heart of Scrum. It is a 2 weeks or 1 month period in which a potentially releasable product increment is generated. Following the conclusion of the preceding sprint, a new sprint begins. It breaks down large, difficult undertakings into manageable, smaller tasks. It helps teams provide high quality work faster and more frequently, making projects easier to manage. Sprints provide them with more flexibility in adapting to changes. Sprint planning, daily scrums, development work, sprint review, and sprint retrospective are all part of a sprint. The work to be done in the sprint is planned collectively by the Scrum team during sprint planning. The daily Scrum meeting is a 15-minute time-boxed event in which the Scrum team synchronizes efforts and creates a strategy for the following day. At the end of each sprint, a sprint review is held to review the increment and, if necessary, make modifications to the product backlog. After the sprint review and before the following sprint planning, there is a sprint retrospective. The Scrum team will inspect itself and prepare a plan for changes to be implemented during the next sprint during this sprint retrospective meeting. What is the ideal duration for a sprint? Usually the duration for a Scrum sprint depends upon the size of the project and the number of people working on it. The duration of a sprint is about 2 to 4 weeks in general. I have generally worked with 2 week sprints since it is more suitable for my team. Shorter the duration of the sprint, the risk is also reduced accordingly. This is very important for the product owner. At the same time, if you keep the sprint too shorter, you will end up spending more time in Scrum events and meetings. What is a user story in Scrum? A user story is a tool used in Agile software development that represents a small piece of business value that a team can deliver in a sprint. Basically, it creates a simplified description of a user's requirement. A good user story has who the user is as a type of user, what is required. I want this and this. So why are we building it and what value it brings for the user? So that you should have the list down the benefits. So for example, a user story in case of a person's online purchase, he might write, as a customer, I want to shop online using mobile app so that I don't need to visit the local market. This is a very good example. So next question, who is responsible for writing user story? User stories can be written by anyone, although it is a product owner's job to ensure that an agile user story backlog exists. This does not imply that the product owner is the one who produces them. During the early stages of product development, the team discusses needs and records them as user stories. As long as there is a product backlog, it will never be frozen. As a result, if someone thinks there is a missing requirement or anything that could benefit the client, they can add it to the queue as a user story. There is no rule or guideline indicating that the user stories must be written solely only by the product owner. Because there is a set format, anyone creating the story should know exactly what it means and how to write it. What is a story point in Scrum and how do you calculate it? A story point is a metric used in Agile project management to understand the implementation difficulty of a certain user story. Fundamentally, it is a number that showcases how challenging a story is for the team based on complexity, risk, and efforts. What is a storyboard in Scrum? Storyboard is a visual representation of a project's progress, which generally has 4 columns. An important principle in Scrum is the idea of transparency. That's why making things visible for the entire team to see is really important. And a big factor of this is the user storyboard. So if you see what are those 4 columns, it could be even more in your project. So first of all, you will see the sprint backlog or the product backlog, and the next column is to-do list, in progress, sorry for the spelling mistake here, and then third column is either to test or to verify the work. So you will move from one user story from one column to the next. So it will be in progress and it will go to verify. If everything is fine and it passes all the user acceptance criteria, then it will move to done. Otherwise, if there is any bug or any issues found during this process in the verification, it will be moved again back to in progress or to do. What does a Scrum burndown chart comprise? Burndown charts are used to track sprint status. They illustrate the amount of work remained to complete. Also, they will highlight the area where they see redundancy. So burndown charts include in x-axis the working days, and in the y-axis it displays the remaining efforts to be completed. Ideal efforts as a guideline, the blue color line, and actual progress of the effort, the red color line. How is Scrum different from waterfall model? In Scrum, feedback is received at an early stage, so it minimizes risk in response to changes, focuses on collaborative development. Scrum increases the return of investment, and it also allows to roll back changes. So in this picture, you could see what is the problem and why the waterfall model could fail. And you could easily notice that each and everything is different from what the user really wanted. And if there is no early feedback, you will end up doing any of these mistakes. Hence, any Agile or Scrum is suggested. How do you assure user stories meet the requirements? A good user story comprises a description as well as set acceptance criteria. It should be a piece that can be completed in a sprint and has the fewest dependencies possible. Within the sprint's constraints, the team should be able to build and test while also delivering estimations. In a short, the inverse principle is followed by good user stories. So what is inverse, right? So I stands for independent. The user story should be such that the team members are less reliant on others. N stands for negotiable, meaning it should describe the functionality and is subject to agreement between the team and the product owner. V stands for valuable. It should add value to the customer's experience. E stands for estimable. User stories should be such that the time requirement can be approximately estimated based on the complexity. S stands for small. It should be small enough so that the team can complete it in a sprint. T stands for testable. It should have good acceptance criteria. During backlog refinement or sprint preparation, the Scrum Master can assist the team in producing good user stories so that they can be picked up by the team. Do you know any other Agile methodology apart from Scrum? Well, when you are posed with this sort of question, and if you have not used any other frameworks, you can just name few other frameworks that you know or you might have heard of. Other frameworks that are based on Agile are Kanban, test-driven development, feature-driven development, extreme programming. How is Scrum different from traditional project management? Traditional project management emphasizes on conducting detailed upfront planning for the project with higher priority for fixing the scope, cost, and schedule and managing those parameters. Whereas Scrum encourages data-based iterative decision making in which the primary focus is on delivering products than satisfying customer requirements. To deliver the greatest amount of value in the shortest amount of time, Scrum promotes prioritization and time boxing over fixing the scope, cost, and schedule of a project. An important feature of Scrum is self-organization, which allows the individuals who are actually doing the work to estimate and take ownership of tasks. So as you could see, the emphasis is on people in Scrum, whereas it is on process in traditional project management. Regarding documentation, Scrum suggests a minimal amount of documentation and only that is required. The reason being it will keep changing, right? That's the reason. Whereas in traditional project management, comprehensive documentations are required. So you might be doing low level, high level design, and you might be trying to fix everything even before starting the work. So process style is iterative in Scrum, whereas in traditional project management, it is very linear. If you see in Scrum, the upfront planning is very low in Scrum because in Scrum is following Agile, so it encourages changes in the future as well. Whereas in traditional project management, the upfront planning should be really, really high, and because it doesn't encourage changes later. Prioritization of requirements. So based on business value and they are regularly updated in Scrum. Whereas if you see in traditional project management, prioritization of requirements are fixed in the project plan. So what is the role of a Scrum Master? So Scrum Master is the team's facilitator responsible for helping all team members following the Scrum theories, rules and practices. Scrum Master makes sure the Scrum team has whatever it needs to complete its work, like removing roadblocks that are holding up progress, organizing meetings, dealing with challenges and bottlenecks. Scrum Master provides support to the Scrum team in a variety of ways, including mentoring members of the team in self-managing and cross-functionality, assisting the Scrum team in focusing on creating elevated increments that meet the definition of done, removing roadblocks to the Scrum team's progress, also ensuring that all Scrum events occur and are positive, productive, and kept within the time box. The product owner benefits from the Scrum Master in a variety of ways, including assisting in the use of strategies for successful product, goal definition, and backlog management, assisting the Scrum team in comprehending to the needs of having clear and precise product backlog items, assisting in the development of empirical product planning for a complicated environment. The Scrum Master helps the company in a variety of ways, including leading, mentoring, and training the organization's Scrum adoption, making plans and recommending Scrum implementations within the organization, assisting employees and stakeholders, understanding and putting into practice an empirical approach to complex work. Scrum Master also helps in removing barriers between stakeholders and the Scrum team. So explain what is a Scrum of Scrums. A Scrum of Scrums or Meta Scrum is used in environments that have multiple Scrum teams. The purpose of the Scrum of Scrums is to provide a platform for cross-team collaboration and planning, highlighting dependencies and addressing points of integration or conflict. In order to coordinate and communicate with different teams, there is a need to organize a separate meeting among all the Scrum teams. This meeting is called the Scrum of Scrums. The responsible person from each team attends the meeting and discusses their work and progress. The Scrum of Scrums is a time box session in which a representative from each team shares high-level updates on their respective team's work and articulates their progress and impediments. Ideally, it should follow the various teams' daily stand-ups so that the latest information is communicated. While daily Scrum meetings are used for quick updates, not problem solving, the Scrum of Scrums is not bound by the same rule. If a problem is identified in the Scrum of Scrums and all parties needed to make a decision are in attendance, the issue can be addressed at the same time in the same meeting. What is Agile? This is a tricky and controversial question since the definition of Agile is not commonly agreed upon. Is Agile a framework or is Agile a methodology? So you could put like this: Agile is a mindset, a philosophy, more like a way of thinking, a movement focusing on communication, team thinking, intrinsic motivation, empowerment, innovative works, flow, and value creation while developing a product. What are the major principles of Agile? The key principles of Agile include customer satisfaction, face-to-face communication, continuous feedback, quick response to changes, sustainable development, self-organization, successive improvement, collective teamwork. When to use Agile model? A flexible model like Agile can be used in cases like when new changes need to be implemented in between development cycle, working on complex and bigger projects, there are long-term goals and no bound on requirements. How to quickly launch the product to market. There are frequent changes throughout the development cycle. There is no limit on time and budget. What are the most important components of Agile? The most important components that constitute Agile are stand-up meetings, which are done on a daily basis, class responsibilities and collaborator cards, time box task boards, iteration planning meetings that carry out the iterative development, TDD, test-driven development, continuous integration, DevOps, regular code reviews, pair programming, automated builds, and many more. What does a Scrum Master do? Scrum Master serves product owner, development team, and the organization in different ways. The most important responsibility of a Scrum Master include to make sure that the goals and scope of the project are understood by everyone involved, remove impediments and obstacles that could slow down the team's progress, guide the team and product owner to improve the effectiveness of their practices, makes changes to increase the productivity of the Scrum team, facilitate Scrum events when requested and needed, helps stakeholders and employees understand Scrum empirical theory. What do you mean by sprint zero and spike? The modest amount of effort put in to estimate a rough skeleton of the product backlog is referred to as sprint zero. It also contains information on calculating product release dates. Sprint zero is necessary for the following tasks: creating a skeleton for the project as well as research spikes, maintaining a minimalist design, creating a few stories completely, being lightweight, and having a low velocity. The spike is a collection of activities that use extreme programming for research, design, investigation, prototyping, and other purposes. It tries to mitigate the technical approach risks by assisting with the acquisition of knowledge in order to better comprehend